You're listening to Crystal and Emily on Love Your Shelf, the best librarian podcast in the extensive and highly competitive field of librarian podcasts. Today, we're on episode 18 of Love Your Shelf.
Old enough to vote. The podcast is old enough to vote.
That's right. So we thought we would graduate to new subject matter. So we have Amy Goodwin, our library patron extraordinaire.
Thank you.
And probably the most prolific reader that I know. I don't know.
Oh, thank you. That's such a compliment coming from you, especially.
But I think you are, and you read really widely. You read like everything.
Yes, nothing is off limits.
Right. So we invited you to talk about romance novels. They're super popular. There are so many of them, and I don't know. Emily and I don't really read them as much. So
no, but I don't know. Maybe after this.
Yeah.
Well, I started reading romance novels late in life. I was in college before I really even knew they existed. My sister was actually going to boarding school for high school, and I went to visit her. And in the dorm where they lived, the girls kind of passed around a little stack of romance novels. And
oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
I love
so
that.
My sister was reading one, and, being the tattletale I was like, ooh, Mom's going to be so mad that you're reading that. And she was like, I am reading this for research. And I was like, yeah, likely excuse. But she said that there was a formula to romance novels, and she was trying to figure out the formula perfectly so that she could write one and make $1 million.
Yep.
So that fascinated me. So the next time I got a chance, I might have even stolen one from their stash. I can't remember. I got a romance novel and read it and was just immediately hooked, pretty much because of the formula that all romance novels follow. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to need you to break it down.
I was just about to say, can we step by step? I'll even take notes. What is this formula?
Well, the great part about it is in a romance novel, you always can do anything you want with the characters, and the more suffering they have, the better. There's all kinds of crazy things that can happen to them. But the best thing about the formula, and the thing that makes a romance novel is that in the end, everything is going to be okay, and they're going to live happily ever after.
Man, I should be reading these books. This is perfect.
So that reassurance, where even in the worst part of the book, when you're just like, how is this ever going to be okay? It's going to be okay. And it's such a comfort reading these kinds of books, especially I do read all the time, and I read all kinds of books. So when I finish a particularly intense book, something that really sticks with me or, changed me in some way, which I do come across those quite often, I use the romance novel as sort of a buffer between my next intense book. It's sort of like a meditation for my mind to read a romance novel, because it's like the little control center of my brain is saying, okay, we finished that crazy book. Now she's picked up a romance novel. We can all just kind of shut down and just enjoy reading this. We don't have to try to figure out the murder in the first 10 pages. We don't have to know the basics of the German language. It's like we can just sit here and enjoy this read and not have to really pick it apart and think about it. It's just going to be good. You're just going to have fun reading this.
Yes, you're just, here for the trip.
Exactly. So I enjoy reading romances for that reason. I probably read, 150 to 200 books a year, and probably 10 of them are romance novels, but they're so well placed in my reading scheme.
Right.
There's some of the usually the books I enjoy, the most throughout the year, just because it was like a way for me to just take a step back and enjoy reading again.
Yeah, palate cleanser kind of.
There you go. Exactly.
I use shows like Modern Family or something like that for the same purpose.
My reality TV guilty pleasure that I haven't gone into detail on this podcast for certain reasons.
She's been hiding it.
I have. It's my like deep, dark. Yeah, here we go, folks. It's coming out. But no, it's definitely why I watch it. It's a palate cleanser because it's nothing like my life.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, everything's gonna be okay in the end.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if that's true, actually.
Well, it'll be okay for me.
Leave it to Crystal to bust our bubble.
Well, but a lot of these people are rich, and I feel like they'll be okay.
Yeah.
Or you just don't care. You're like, I don't care if you're okay.
I don't feel sorry for these people. Yeah.
So I was trying to think of romance novels that I had read, and it's been a while, but I think the most popular one that a lot of people don't count as a romance novel.
Wait, let me guess what you're going to say.
Yes, I know it. You know,
Outlander.
Yes.
Oh,
I was going to talk about that. Yes.
And I mean, it's a lot of things. It's sort of a genre buster, but I think at its heart, that's what it is, right?
Absolutely.
I could see that.
I get annoyed with people, reading snobs who will say, oh, I read a romance novel and it wasn't my cup of tea. But the fact is that there are so many different genres within that genre that to say one romance novel off is really sort of lazy, because you can find a romance novel that fits your reading type. For me personally, I love historical romance. I don't have a degree in Scottish history, and I've never read a textbook like just for Scottish history, but I am an expert.
I was about to say,
Scottish
history.
Because I have read so many romance novels set in Scotland. And I mean, I could go back in time like the character in Outlander
and know how
and be
to
well
survive.
Prepared. Yes. So I feel like reading historical romance, it isn't a waste of time, as some people would say reading romance is, because historical romance especially, I have picked up a lot of really interesting things about history by reading these books, things that may not ever come in handy, but you just never know when you might be swept back in time.
Absolutely.
And you'll need to have that information. Yeah.
Sure. But if I go back in time and there's no Jamie, I'm
yeah.
I'm
gonna
Wait,
be so
okay.
angry.
I started the series. Is he the super hot Scottish guy she meets at the beginning?
Yes.
Duh.
First. Oh,
Duh.
What a babe. Yeah, what a babe.
Yeah.
I was like, well, wait, are there more hot Scottish guys that show?
Well, sure. There's always
amazed.
More. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, good.
Yes, absolutely. And Jamie's taken. I would never take Jamie from Claire.
Sure.
I might be able to, but
you're nice. Yeah.
Because I love Claire as much as I love Jamie.
Aww.
And that's the thing about the romance novel, when you pick those different genres. Like, I really don't read that many romance novels set in modern day. But when I do, I'm always really surprised and enjoy the friendships in those novels. The formula for modern day is usually the woman has a group of friends, or siblings, or someone that loves her and is trying to help her find love in the world. And the guy, the same thing. He has a support network that somehow plays into the story, that helps them come together. And I love the friendship aspects in the modern day romances. You don't find friends that much in the historical ones.
Sure.
They're just pretty much running through history, coming across interesting historical, features or whatever. But in modern day romances, you find really strong, loyal friendships that I enjoy. And then, even if you're into, the vampires and werewolves, there's a whole group of romance novels, for that, and even Twilight could be considered a romance novel.
For sure.
What else is it about?
Do the vampires and werewolves have a good friend that's helping them along too?
Well, usually no. Their friends have all died.
Oh, of course.
Will live forever.
Yeah. Yep.
Very sad. Very sad. But then the sci-fi genre, I definitely include Outlander in that. And you can't find a more beautifully written character development. I mean, those characters are so alive and real for me, and I just love them so much. But there are several different like sci-fi directions that books go to, and in romance novel sci-fi, they don't take it to an extreme. It's almost just like one little aspect of the book, like Outlander. Yeah, it's all this stuff is going on. Oh yeah, and she travels through time. It's just like, there's that one little aspect of sci-fi, but the rest of it is just people living their lives trying to get through.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
man.
there's no excuse for not reading romance. You will find a book if you get out there and look. And I have to say, the Nacogdoches Public Library has a beautiful selection of romance novels.
Why, of course.
Of course.
So when I was thinking about the ones that I had read, another one that pops up that's sort of, it falls in line in a way with Outlander is The Time Traveler's Wife.
That is okay. I was going to bring that one up. What? I read that when I was 16. We were on a trip and we were traveling overseas, and I had read everything that I brought. I even read all of my sister's books, and my mom had just finished The Time Traveler's Wife, and I don't even know if I had her permission. I just picked it up. I don't think she cared either way, but I remember we were on a train and there was a love scene that I was reading, and I remember feeling super strange just being in a public place with my parents reading this scene. But yeah, no, I always kind of I don't know, that was, I think, probably the closest thing I've come to reading a romance novel.
You're missing out.
I mean, I'm telling you, I'm starting to be convinced here.
Well, again, as far as love scenes go, there are romance novels where the characters are going to kiss at some point during the book, and that's the closest you get to a love scene. And I usually end up reading those if I'm in a book club. Because, depending on the level of romance that the people in the club want, when their book suggestion comes up, it's one that they love. And it's great because you still get the connection between, the people in love, and you still have the happy ending, no matter what.
Right.
There is that formula that they still follow, but then it can go the complete opposite direction.
Sure.
In historical romance, I usually find that it gets as trashy as it can, which I love also, because a good love scene, it's a skill to write, to make it not ridiculous.
Oh gosh, I can imagine.
Not just turn into something that you're just like, I don't even want to read any more of this. So it is definitely a skill. I
mean, we've all seen, again, since I haven't read a lot of romance, I just immediately think of movies that I've seen where someone is writing a romance novel and they're trying to think of all these euphemisms for body parts and stuff.
I'm going to include, if I can find it in the Wakelet for this week, I'm going to include, there is an annual list of the worst love scenes in books written usually by men.
Yes, I was fixing to point out it's probably a man writing that. Yeah.
Yes. So
go ahead.
No, I'm gonna try to find that and include that.
Well, because that reminds me, a while ago there was a podcast called, it was something like My Father Wrote a Porno.
Yes.
I
listened to that. Yes.
And it's so hilarious. And he even the guy who hosts it, the son, even talks about how, like, you know, my father knows nothing. Oh, that's great. I'll have to check out that list myself. That's hilarious.
I know.
Oh, they're usually just really classic. I mean,
yeah, just over the top, embarrassing. Yeah. Well, I don't really have favorite romance novel authors. I am one of those people that choose a romance for two reasons. One, I don't want to pay a bunch of money for a romance novel, so the cheaper the better. Just because I read
it'll take
those really
like an hour to read.
Yeah, I mean, in a Saturday afternoon, I have my little romance novel read, and then I'm done. So I don't want to pay a bunch of money for that, except I will make the exception for Outlander. I will give Diana Gabaldon all my money if she would just please write the next one. But besides that one, I like, you know, getting the dollar ones at half price bookstore that are a step away from the dumpster if I don't buy it. Just, you know, as cheap as I can get it. And then the second criteria, I usually really look at the cover. I'm one of those people that will buy a romance novel just based on whether the guy has dark hair or blonde hair. I personally prefer dark-haired men on my cover, so I'm not a Fabio person, but I think it's always an interesting way to choose a romance novel without even reading, to see what time it's set in, to see, you know, who the people are, what the storyline is. You can just do it to you can tell just by the clothes they're wearing, the position that they're in, you know, how steamy or how exciting, or, you know, what's going to happen. If there's horses on the cover, oh my gosh, you're like, yes, I'm going to read. I
cannot explain how much I adore the simplicity of this. Like, oh, yep, okay.
That is what is so wonderful about a romance novel, is that it is just fun, you know. There is no highbrow to it. You can just enjoy yourself.
When our book sale is open, when the Friends of the Library have their book sale here, we get a lot of donations of romance novels, you know, for this reason that you said, like, when you read it, it's not, you're not going to put it on your shelf.
You're done.
And so we usually have like a full box packed with like 30 of them for $2 or something. So yeah. And we have to do that.
Best. Yeah, there's the only thing better than a good romance novel is a free romance novel. Like, I love that. I feel like I've won somehow.
So do you count like Danielle Steele as romance?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Yes. And I've read a few Danielle Steele years ago and haven't gone and just picked another one up. I don't know why. I just haven't run across them. But the only romance novel author that I will usually buy, no matter what, is Amanda Quick. And I think that's actually a pseudonym of a woman that writes under a lot of different pseudonyms. I think she also writes under Jane Ann Krantz, which is she's a very popular romance writer. But she writes under another pseudonym that does sci-fi. And then Jane Ann Krantz, I think she does mostly like modern day kind of stuff. She might have done some historical. But under Amanda Quick, she writes really, you know, if you get an Amanda Quick romance novel, that the heroine is going to be super smart, really witty. It's not about like beauty and rich and all this. Usually she is, you know, she's some expert in ancient manuscripts, and she's come across a treasure map, and, you know, someone is trying to get it from her. And the other side of it, the man usually is some outcast from society, you know, either the black sheep of the family, or he's made his riches through trade, which is just unheard of in, you know, society. Or the
clutching my pearls over here.
Yes. Yes. The absolute best is the guy will usually have some sort of scar. And if it's a facial scar, I will literally giggle out loud. I get so excited. I'll be like, this is it. I have found it.
There's a
He
scar.
has a facial scar. Yeah. I know that is going to be one of my favorite romance novels. Absolutely.
I want to make like an infographic of like things to look for in a romance novel.
or a quiz, like one of those like BuzzFeed
quizzes. Yes.
Well, this is interesting. I don't know if you've noticed this in the books that are donated to the library, but a lot of romance novel readers, and I don't do this on every book, no romance novel read, but I do it on one if it's very good. Will read it and will write in the inside of the front cover, very good or excellent.
Oh yes.
So if I'm in a half price bookstore or something, and I pick up a used book, if I look in the cover and it says excellent, I'm taking that book home with me.
Absolutely.
I don't care. It's like a little code that we're doing for each other. And I've seen that everywhere. My sister used to live in Miami, and I would go down there, and the bookstores there would have the same thing. I'm like, this is universal for romance novels. I love it.
And I was gonna say, I don't think that could work for any other genre.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if I picked up some regular sci-fi book, if somebody had written excellent in it, I would not think twice. I would not consider that their opinion. You know what I mean?
But library patrons do that. They write in the, well, what we see actually is that people put their initials or something in like really small inside the cover so that they know that they've read that one because they read so much.
Yes, I do. I have bought a romance novel and realized halfway through I've read this one. Yes, that's actually pretty smart. I'm not going to do that.
Right.
I wouldn't do that to the library books. Sorry, but it's a great idea.
If we see AG in these books now, we're going to know you're lying.
We're going to find you.
I'm found out.
So it was great talking to Amy.
Yes, that was a really fun conversation.
Yeah, I like having guests. So I do have a bunch of things that I want to talk about, though. So settle in. No,
I'm ready.
No, I had a really cool, a bunch of varied experiences this past week. And it's like the whole range of human emotion. And anyway, so I've read a bunch of good things. I've watched several good things. And the things that I didn't really like, I am just not going to even bring up. So
Okay. Yeah. Don't even go there.
Yeah, exactly. The first book I want to talk about is The Future of Another Timeline by Annalee Newitz. And it's got everything. It was like she was in my head.
Oh.
In a good way, not...
Yeah, not like you're crazy. Yeah.
Well, there's probably that too, but... No, it's about a woman. It was like there's a time travel aspect, and it's about a woman who, like in the early 90s, was a riot girl, and which I'm super in love with.
I was about to say I'm all about that. Yeah, that scene. Cool.
Yes, so it takes place partly in 1992, I guess. 1992, and then in 2021. So,
in the distant future.
Yes. Like that old Conan O'Brien skit in the year 2000 that he kept doing.
Oh, yes.
Even beyond.
That's right.
In the year 2021. So, I don't even want to say anything about it because I just happened to, it was one of those, I just browsed on the new bookshelf here. At the library, and was like, never heard of it. She's written another book, but I had never heard of that either.
Okay.
But I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it is definitely like speculative fiction type thing.
Right.
It's not necessarily super sci-fi, and then some aspects of that kind of get lost in the story, but I never have a problem with that,
Okay. Yeah.
I'm all about the story. So if there's a little bit of wonky time travel, yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I agree.
Yeah, it's just that's how it is sometimes. It's also like explores women's history and the different timelines. They're like different realities from ours. So the 2021 in the novel, things are very different than what our experience is. So
okay.
So it's like the 1992 is like what ours would have been, ours was, but things have changed. So anyway, super cool.
Oh, yeah.
It's a really good book. I then also read a book called Too Much Information, Understanding What You Don't Want to Know by Cass R. Sunstein. And she quotes at the beginning, knowledge is power, but ignorance is bliss, right?
Right.
And so it is obviously extremely timely. We know that, speaking of 1992, Crystal could not fathom what we are doing today,
Oh my gosh. Neither could I, but I was 2 years old.
I was going to say, yeah, you could. You were a very special baby.
I knew everything.
Saw the future.
That's right.
So, so I think that that was a very different kind of, it's obviously nonfiction, but very worth reading. And I think that that's a big problem today because there is so much that you have to edit it for yourself, and you have to,
right.
And so much of us are like, oh, I don't want to experience that. I don't want to know about that, which is not, 30 years ago or whatever. I don't think people really had that feeling. Or
no, I know.
Feeling like I want more knowledge. I want to know more, and I don't feel like that anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think at that point, the idea of knowing more was, I don't know, palatable. It was easy to, we weren't given as much. And so, yeah, I don't know, it was easier to crave more. And now we're burnt out.
Yeah, because my early experiences online. So when I started college in 1995, we were assigned to do online research. And I can still remember just, I was so annoyed by it because it was all a bunch of GeoCities websites that, were created by individuals. And so it was really hard to find any actual web sources that were authoritative in any way.
Right.
There was no Google. So searching was problematic. Anyway, it was just, there was definitely a sense of there's this vast amount of knowledge out there, and it's hard work to get to it.
Right.
Now it's not. It's like the opposite of that.
Yeah.
We still have that feeling of vastness, but it's like a tsunami, and
we don't want
away from it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Do not want to dive into that.
Yeah, ain't that the truth?
So that was a good book. And I also was reminded of a book because it was turned into a film. I'm thinking of Ending Things.
Oh, that's right. You mentioned it last week, but you decided to wait before you dove in. That's right.
And so it's by Ian Reed. It was published in 2016, and it was made into a movie. It was written and directed by, here I go again, forgetting the name. Oh, I just have to look back at last week's notes because I mentioned Charlie Kaufman.
Oh, okay, nice. My gosh, I could have. Yeah. Okay.
It's one of, I don't know. I could say it's one of those days, but
it's
I've
always
done this multiple times.
So. Yeah, no, I'm always having one of those days.
So anyway, so he wrote and directed the film version of it, and I had even forgotten until I started the film that I had actually read the book. In fact, I read it, and it's probably why I didn't include it in my Goodreads or really remember it, because I read it in one sitting, like into the wee hours of the morning. And but the problem was, which I realized as I started this movie, is that I read it into the wee hours and then was like disgusted because it didn't go where I wanted it to go, or I kept waiting for it to get good, and it never did.
Man,
so, I know. So there are things about it that are good. It's very odd. The actors are fully committed and excellent. Just really, really great. Everybody that's in the film. But I will say it's really atmospheric, and so it opens with a young couple in a car driving through like a snowy landscape, and the woman thinks to herself, "I'm thinking of ending things," and then that kind of, that you think that that's what it gets stuck in her head, and you think that that's what's going to drive, so to speak, what's coming up.
Okay.
But there's a big twist, but on the way to the twist, it gets weirder and weirder and weirder. So
okay,
but weirder in a David Lynch kind of way, like like creepy, but you don't really know, can't put your finger on why.
It's just generally unsettling.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And the female character, the female part of the couple, is sort of like a stand-in for the audience a little bit.
I see.
So she doesn't know what's going on, and anyway, but you hear her inner monologue, basically.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I will leave it at that.
Cool.
It's worth watching, especially if you like Charlie Kaufman, David Lynch, that kind of thing. You'll enjoy it.
I'm intrigued. I thought about it, but I kind of wanted to wait for your review. So thank you.
I also watched Madame Curie on Amazon Prime. And it's about Marie Curie, and it's an odd biopic in that it's like almost too educational. It's like one of those educational films that you watched as a kid in school. Because it introduces her as a young person and meeting her husband, and then zaps forward a whole bunch of years, and then here's a highlight, and then zaps forward again, and it's just a little, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, good to know.
But her life was amazing, and she discovered radium, and then was like exposed to massive doses of radiation.
Oh, goodness.
And her husband, her daughter, and her daughter's husband, all died of radiation caused illnesses.
Which sounds horrible.
Oh yeah,
by the way, like,
you don't want it.
What a horrible way to go.
In fact, her papers and even her cookbooks from the 1890s are still, they're stored in lead boxes because they're still too dangerous for people to touch today.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
That's horrifying.
Yeah.
So these people were just picking it up, rubbing it on their bodies, basically.
Yeah, just living all in it. Yeah.
Yep. Oh man. Anyway.
So then there were some interesting elements to it. There's like some flash forwards where it goes to like the 60s in these test towns where they were testing nuclear weapons.
Mm-hmm.
And it showed, because her findings made those things possible. And
yep.
And then also there's her experiences in World War I, and that footage is really intense.
Wow.
So it's not uplifting necessarily,
right?
But it is so much. It's just really historically rich, and there's a lot to know.
Wow.
And then one of the flash forwards is a scene of the first candidate for radiation therapy for cancer.
Oh,
and it was a child. And so,
wow.
So there's a lot of, anyway, another something that I definitely would recommend watching. And then the last thing I will mention for today, at least, is I also mentioned it last week that I was planning to watch it, and that's Jojo Rabbit.
Oh, yes. What'd you think?
I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yes.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Heartbreaking and delightful at the same time, right?
Yes. Like I said, like the whole range of human emotion.
Yep.
I mean, all up and down and around and
yep, absolutely.
The last quote I think is "Let everything happen to you. Beauty and terror just keep going. No feeling is final." From a poem by Rilke. And I think it was probably some of the biggest extremes, from like laughing to gut wrenching that I've ever seen, except for maybe Life is Beautiful. Have you seen that film?
No, but noted. I know it's one I know I need to see.
Yeah.
No, I think I have seen it. It's the little boy and his dad is like kind of teaches him, makes him think it's a game.
Yes.
I have seen that. What? Oh my gosh. Yes.
So good.
And yes, God, I remember the end. Oh my gosh. Yes. It's
but then the funny parts, like Sam Rockwell's character as Captain K is really dark, but also hilarious.
Yes.
And kind of some aspects of that kind of reminded me of like Mel Brooks.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes.
But
just the silliness of evil people. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
At the end of the day, you look like an idiot, man.
Yeah. And then only a couple of people in history have made Hitler funny. And that would include Charlie Chaplin. And but this guy was, hilarious.
Yes. I mean,
just nailed it. That how ridiculous everything was. And
it's so satisfying too. Like, that's one thing I did like is I don't know, there's a moment where you get what you have been waiting for.
Exactly. Yeah. So I didn't really, it took me a long time to watch it because to start it, because I thought, oh, it looks weird. I know.
Yeah.
And it got a lot of recognition and awards and stuff.
And it is kind of weird for sure. I mean,
I think there's some people who would probably not appreciate it because the oddball humor is very specific. But it was really one of the better movies I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, no, I think it was a great one. I need to watch it again now that it's on HBO.
Yes. So I think that pretty much. I have watched other things, but I will save them for a later time.
Yeah, and we have covered a wide range. We went romance to Hitler, sci-fi, everything.
So it was maybe too much information, but at least we're done now.
And we've come full circle.
Exactly.
All right.
So we'll sign off and we'll talk to you guys again in a week.
Awesome. Bye, guys.
Bye. Afraid you missed one of our scintillating selections? Check out wakelet.com and you'll find a collection of all of the titles that we have mentioned on our podcast.